Finding Hope, the Road to Recovery.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ayeneh, the Road to Recovery. My name is Mark Winkler. I'm a supervisor at Tarzana Treatment Centers. And today I'm very excited because we have a special guest, and his name is Tyler Danna. I recently shared space with Tyler at Los Angeles Comic-Con, where we talked about a powerful comic that he has created that is addressing the crisis, the fentanyl crisis. And so today we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper and talk to Tyler about his motivations behind the comic book, some of the impact, and what's next for the comic book. But right now, I would like to introduce Tyler Danna. Tyler, welcome to Ayeneh.
Thank you. It's really great to be here. Thanks to you, I have seen several episodes of this program, and it's been really fun to see the sharing that people do, either sharing deeply personal experiences or really valuable information in approaching the epidemic, or valuable information just in terms of the science behind a lot of the stuff that you all are doing. And I'm here to talk about a comic book.
Well, like I said at the LA Comic-Con, there is multiple ways to approach a subject matter, right? And I believe that when you're especially with youth, right? So when you're dealing with youth, it's really hard to really get through about the importance of things. So if we can put something in front of them that can...
It's not a cell phone.
It's not a cell phone.
Sorry, I shouldn't even... A smartphone. Sorry, I'm not that old.
You dated yourself a little bit, but that's okay. So before we dive into that, just want to talk a little bit about you. You're an educator. You've taught at LAUSD as well. You are now teaching at UCLA Extension. How was that? How was that teaching experience?
Oh boy. Well, I had a great opportunity to be brought into that, to LAUSD for a very small period of time.
Okay.
And I've been teaching college for a very long time. Okay. It turns out the math is a little shocking, but I was talking about coming up on the 18-year mark, but it's actually been since 2006.
Okay.
So I do that currently at UCLA Extension, which is a college level program. I've been doing that since 2018. And that's incredibly rewarding. And a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Between the two. But certainly getting to see a very small insight into what goes on in the school system, the LAUSD school system, and just, like where students are, what their interests are and stuff like that is certainly, I don't know. I remember being a high school kid or a kid in school and told, don't do drugs. They can kill you. And now I'm the one saying it, but I feel like they can really, really, really kill you without you even knowing you've taken a drug that could do that, which is the really scary thing.
That is scary. That is scary. I'm curious. So that's almost a span of 20 years that you've been teaching, right? Yeah. And that's a good thing. That's actually a very good thing. So in this span of 20 years, Tyler, what sort of differences in the students have you that you perceive?
Oh, geez. Well, it's different between every program, right? I don't know. Do you mean difference between the age groups? Or?
Well, not necessarily age groups, but just in terms of a desire to learn, focus, just in the classroom experience itself.
I feel like at the college level, it's been pretty consistent.
Okay.
There's a little bit of, kind of potential concern for the stuff I do with use of AI to think for you, to do assignments for you. That's never good because you're not building those essential blocks that you need. Like if I had a way to only edit the college papers I had to write, I never ever would have written one. Right now I'd be much worse off for it, not struggling through that stuff.
Absolutely.
So I try to encourage students, it's a safe space, make mistakes, do bad posts. It's fine, that's how you learn to do the good ones. And then obviously what do you call it? The K through 12 level, it seems much more kind of exacerbated in terms of a concern. I guess, sorry, I don't really know how to answer.
No, you did. I mean, I'm the AI question for me is one that I'm really concerned about because I see increasingly more and more students are sort of pulling away from their creative self. Right?
Yeah.
And that really scares me. And as a creative, we're going to segue now because we're not talking to Tyler the teacher, we're talking to Tyler the creator, right?
I got to be careful with that branding.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but
I Googled it.
we're talking to this guy, Tyler, who created this unique comic book that I love, Narcan Man.
Yeah, Narc Man.
What inspired that? What's the origin story of this?
Yeah, well, in case you want to retake, it's Narc Man.
Narc Man. Okay.
Which I think is important.
So we'll do that. There we go.
Yeah.
So we are talking to the creative side of you at this moment, right? And so, Narc Man.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired that? What was the origin story of Narc Man?
Well, it's interesting because the epidemic has affected, the opioid epidemic has affected so many people, and it would be very easy to have a story because of X, Y, or Z situation in my own life, which does exist, but it isn't something that it's really my place to talk about. I'm happy to talk to people about it in person at booths and stuff like that, at conventions, but not so much, right, when it's that person's place to share that. But it's so that's definitely part of the drive behind it. But it really started as sort of a joke. Joking around with my girlfriend, what would happen if a certain character existed in the real world? Well, he would have to replace all his utilities with Narcan to meet the demand, right? And I had this idea, and she was like, "Oh, you have to write a comic about that. All the different superheroes carrying Narcan." And I was like, "Yeah," just kind of laughing. The next morning, had this idea and ended up writing a 20-page mini comic that sort of explained how he ended up in that situation. What happened to all the villains in that world, how they all ended up just the epidemic was so overwhelming that they couldn't even get into their traditional villainry, and they were all, going through, they were all at Tarzana Treatment Center at that point and stuff like that. But I ended up bringing it to my friend Beverly Salas, wanting her to draw it because she wanted to do comics for a long time. And she was like, 20 pages. So we focused in on just this one part, which was just the sidekick learning he wasn't going to get to do the fun stuff and saying, wait, all we have is Narcan? I was training for years to do all this, grappling hooks and all these different things. And it's Narcan. And he's like, that's all we do now. And that's all it was. And she turned into this amazing art print. And it was inside of a collection of other work we'd done. And so when showing just that page to people at the convention, people responded really strongly to it, and had there's meaningful stuff about it in my own life, but the sense of sort of recognition it gave people, and we have yet to do a show where someone has not come up and said, "I lost someone to the epidemic." To opioids. And I haven't even seen, I haven't had that even with COVID, right? Where knowing that many people who have lost someone or something like that. So every show we do, or it's someone from the harm reduction community or someone who's on the front line as EMT, and there's this tremendous sense of validation and excitement about it, and people saying, "Oh, well, you did this. Do you know about this?" So the thing has become this obligation, which I'm very happy to fulfill because it's so fun, of when we get new information or new news, you hear something on the radio, like our episode, The Plummet, right? And you had some thoughts about this that we didn't get to talk about on the panel at Comic-Con, but the 10 to 15% drop in opioid-related deaths, opioid-related overdose deaths, how does that affect this character? What are his thoughts on that? Because to me, it's interesting that that's the only information coming out. You're only hearing like, "Hey, good news." That's all you really hear on the radio, largely, right? And it's like, okay, that's good news, right? That's a win.
Absolutely.
But there's 100,000 people still dying that same year. So.
And that's important, because as I mentioned at the panel, that yes, and the good news is that the numbers are dropping, right? And it's dropping in part due to all of the amazing work that people who are fighting this fight, in the harm reduction and the treatment that they're doing. So the awareness of this is happening. But as I mentioned, according to the CDC and SAPSI, the people who actually need treatment, out of 100%, only 5% come to the door.
Interesting.
Right. And so what happens as a result of that, when they come in, they are not necessarily, when they're outside of that, they are not necessarily having the time that's spent when you are in treatment that you really learn the ins and outs of like how dangerous this stuff really is.
Right.
So they don't really get a chance to really pull away from it. And so they're still really finding themselves in dangerous situations. We here at Tarzana, we see that all the time with the youth that we work with. From our prevention to our treatment, we see that youth are still exposing themselves to very dangerous situations, right?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about being at Comic-Con, right? And people's reactions, right?
Yes.
What do you think the interest comes from? You mentioned a little bit about people having that experience in their life, maybe losing someone. Is it that, or do you see something else related to like the excitement behind this, especially with the people that you're making connections to in the harm reduction community?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's such an interesting thing, and I was very, very busy, the last year. So some of what's come out of this project is just having very little room for creativity and being like, well, there's still Narcan, and I can put these episodes out once a month. And so getting to do that and then seeing this is the thing kind of waiting on the other end of that was like, oh, wow. But in terms of the excitement, it's almost, it's sort of like a different category of anything I've experienced, that kind of validation and appreciation. And I'm like, don't thank me. You know what I mean? Like, this is all fun for me. Or all reward in a way. Like, these people that have gone through tremendous things. So it's I don't know, it's that sense of this community response to it and enthusiasm for like, you have to do something about this, right? People telling us, people like, and in the last, over the month of September, we had the opportunity to do 4 different shows in 4 different cities, right? So we went to Portland for Rose City Comic-Con. And so we're experiencing how the epidemic has affected these different places, and it's entirely fascinating. So the responses we're getting there are very fascinating, and then to Denver, where I'm from originally, and then to Pittsburgh, and it's different everywhere. And somebody in Pennsylvania, I think, has revived 2,000 people. That's a report we've heard.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's not just someone like, walking around on the street, it just happens to carry a lot. It's someone who is working at a facility that services that community and is just experiencing overdoses to that extent.
Let's unfold that a little bit. So you go to these different cities, right? What are some of the differences in the stories that you're hearing? How the crisis is affecting these different communities. You said from Portland to Pennsylvania to California.
Yeah.
What are you hearing?
Well, the one consistent that I'm hearing is that, again, we have not done a show where someone hasn't come up to the table and shared a story about someone an immediate family member that has passed away, or a best friend that's passed away from overdosing on fentanyl. And either on accident, someone told us a story in Ontario of a coworker who had a headache and a friend gave them a pill, and they took it and they overdosed. You've told that story about Van Nuys middle school or high school?
It was middle school.
So it was a middle school.
Actually, I said a high school, but it's a middle school.
Okay,
Yes.
Gotcha. And then, and same thing, like, Portland, we're up there and a kid comes up to the table, a child, and, and his mom's like, oh, do you want to share with them? And he's like, no, I don't feel like it. And then, obviously, you can do whatever he wants. And the mom's like, oh yeah, her partner passed away, the kid's father. At literally every single show. Same thing happened in Pittsburgh. I dropped the comic off at a bookstore on Larchmont Boulevard. Who's carrying it? On the way to my car, someone was like, oh, that's cool. What are those stickers on the case I carry him around in? Start talking to them. They lost somebody, a family member, within the last week to an opioid overdose. So it's everywhere. And then, the different cities, different takes on it are very interesting. It was also in Chicago this year. So Portland was, again, I don't want to get too much into like cities' responses. I just know that in Portland just put a thing out like in the last week, because everybody always sends me everything going on. So my friend in Portland sent me a thing and I'd heard about the vending machines there. So they have vending machines that you can go and get Narcan from for free, but there's definitely awareness about the epidemic.
Yeah.
The new one in Portland is someone telling us that when I showed him my cousin's golden retriever who overdosed and is fine now, the comic about that's the great sort of entry point when I try to give someone naloxone at an event and they're like, oh, I don't need it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is my cousin's golden retriever who overdosed, right? So it's like, we're not judging you. There's no taboo. It's just, it touches everyone. And I get to see that. You get to see that.
Absolutely.
In a really extreme way. So Portland was someone who told us about dogs are overdosing because of contact with feces on the street, where fentanyl doesn't break down in the body very well. So anyways, that's, again, getting into science and stuff. I don't want to, and again, I don't know if that's specific to that city, but that was just like a, in terms of the extremes, fascinating things to hear. Like Chicago, very aware of it, Pittsburgh as well. Story of someone who lost somebody.
So let me ask you this. So when I'm out with Tarzana, right, I hear a lot of stories, and it informs me and it helps to drive my passion to really help more, right?
Yes.
You mentioned right in the beginning that this started off as a joke. So now, well, not that it wasn't serious, but it started off with you not necessarily having this extensive background on the subject matter, right? You were aware, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, but after a year, almost maybe 2 years down to the journey?
Yeah, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
So how has your attitude, your understanding, how's that changed now after hearing all these stories? Has it become a crusade for you, or it's not necessarily on that level, but where are you at right now?
Well, and I know those are my own words that started as a joke. It started as me joking around. It's kind of like gallows humor. And the whole reason I liked this medium of comics and got into it was as a tool, because the stuff I like to do, and maybe that comes from teaching for so long, I like to have messaging in what I do, even if it's just kind of opening eyes and minds. And so the opportunity to kind of explore that kind of thing is what drove the original thing, the 20-page mini comic, right? So there's a lot to that, kind of exploring this thing. And again, there is, it does touch my life in a very, very, very specific way. So I know, so it's like putting that out there is like, just trying to raise awareness in a small way, not realizing the degree to which it would be received. And the way that journey has played out is I still haven't gotten to do the original 20-page mini comic because of the stories we've been bombarded with at events and things going on in the news and updates where it's like constantly trying to stay on top of what's going on. And we have our original collection from last year, and then we have the new collection we're going to put together at the end of this year with all the stuff that we did this year. And there's many, many, many more written. So that's kind of like, it's
like Prince's Vault. There's just so much more in there to come out, huh?
Yeah, it's yeah. I get, like you said, crusade's a strong word, but it's certainly getting to be part of something, especially in this medium that is not a profit-driven medium at all. We have an episode about that too. Is getting to not only do something that raises awareness for this, but also underneath it is first and foremost like a really entertaining story that's fun to tell, because these characters have an inherent conflict, right? There's the sidekick who, and you may have encountered this, and I'm assuming, equal amount of time of service to the community, which thank you for that. Like, it's incredible what you do and your outlook and presence, and getting to interact with yourself and Tim at Being Alive. It's incredible just the outlook you guys have, and you see something like this, and it's like, okay, I know where that fits. And we're stumbling around in the dark, and you're kind of like, look, there's a doorway over here you can come to. Sorry, I kind of trailed off. No,
I get what you said. So when I'm in the school systems, you know, when we go out there at Tarzana, we are probably in like 20 different LAUSD schools, non-LAUSD schools. We're in Glendale Unified School District. We just got a contract to go into LAUSD for treatment, right?
Oh, interesting.
So we encounter a lot of youth, right? And it's hard to get messaging across, right? Because one, they're bombarded with information, so it's really difficult to come at different angles where you're going to capture their attention. For me, Narcan really is a valuable tool in that sense. There may be some, though, who say, well, it's people going to look at it as just a comic book, and it's just it's a using your word again, but not necessarily it's a joke to you, but
sure.
the kids won't, they won't get the message. And, I disagree. What do you feel about that?
Well, what's really interesting to me is the way that I came in contact with fentanyl. And this is fascinating. And I was just looking this up yesterday because I knew we were going to do this, was when a person in my life, had what should have been should not be alive. They had so much of that drug in their system. When we found out that's what it was, both me and another person close to me were like, fentanyl. And we were both like, that's that stuff on Euphoria, right? The HBO show, right?
Yes.
And this is season 1, episode 2, I found out yesterday. That's 2019, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we knew.
That's before the pandemic.
Exactly. But it was through entertainment that we had learned what this thing was, right? Which is really interesting. It's a way to reach people. And there's another HBO show on right now that is using fentanyl, it seems like, as a plot device. That's not taking any opportunity whatsoever to be like, by the way, this is super deadly. It's just like, what is this drug worth in terms of the motivation for our characters, whatever. And it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're carrying this bomb around of pure fentanyl. And I just showed you a comic that came out Tuesday where we have a superhero character encountering something, a powder, right? An unknown powder, and says, oh, is this a narcotoxin? And finds out by doing what? Tasting it. And what's that messaging? That's I feel like a huge opportunity to at least make people aware of test strips and stuff like that. So I think entertainment, it's there. So for people where it's like, and that's kind of the thing with this. Like, I could show you there's a lot of ways to use comics. We've seen it done all the time, explicitly with the intention of spreading information, right? And you've read those. If you've used Narcan or naloxone, which is the generic form of Narcan, and that's why we always refer to it as naloxone in our comic, there's a comic strip on the side of it telling you how to use it, right? Not a Bazooka Joe comic, but you see that everywhere, right? Using whatever it is, how to do a COVID test, whatever. The medical information is communicated frequently. It's a very valuable tool for communicating information, but I don't think a high school kid is going to pick up a copy of like the latest how-to guide and read it.
So this has been part 1 of this very exciting conversation with Tyler Danna. Hold tight for part 2 with Ayeneh, The Road to Recovery. We'll be back in a second. Thank you. Thank you, and welcome back to Ayeneh, The Road to Recovery. Once again, my guest, Tyler Danna. We're going to get going with part 2. So Danna, we were talking about the ideal of education and entertainment, that sort of mix. And you were saying, what were you saying to us?
Well, it was in Portland at Rose City Comic Con, someone actually came up to us and was like explaining the concept of edu-action that they are using in women's self-defense and how that's exactly what this is, which is like we all know who have taught that you can very quickly you just see the eyes shut down when you're like, I'm going to teach you. Right? But then we were talking about the example of like different TV programs and stuff where we've learned about the opioid crisis. I mean, probably that's not how you're learning about it. But so the idea that we have this thing that is genuinely, to me, entertaining to tell the story, that the reaction from people is like, oh, that's funny. And actually, you know what? It means something because of this. It's a really unique, rare opportunity. And I think it is only because of how absolutely out of control the epidemic is. And it goes in so many directions. It goes into policy-making realms. It goes like, why is it only happening here? It goes into history, right? This isn't new, the opioid epidemic. So we get to address that through our sidekick's origin story. His parents overdosed, during the Sackler era, right? They're victims of that. So it's like, well, this is clearly a recurring thing. It also goes into how different communities are exposed to it, right? So we had someone that was insistent we make an episode about how the indigenous communities have been at the start of this targeted by pharmaceutical distribution in terms of an asinine excess of overdoses. And it's based on this Washington Post article. And we have an artist finally that's going to do that one for us. And then, and we're going to, maybe we'll be exploring the prison system soon. There's just so many.
No, but I love that, Tyler. I love the way you guys go into all of these different spaces and you don't shy away from it, which is cool. Because I find that when we're in the schools that kids have heard messaging before, to some degree they're kind of numb to it, and people really do have to dig deeper. They really have to find creative ways to have conversations that are important in a way that will capture the attention, right? So you have this mix of education and entertainment. I heard someone once use that edutainment, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
So there has to be this mix. And as I said at the panel at Comic-Con, that I think there has to be a marriage between the creative, the comic book, the creative, with organizations that are out there like Tarzana, that are actually doing the work. So when you're in school, you can show the comic, and then you can talk about, on the deeper side, like what's really happening out there and how can you stay protected? How can you protect yourself? How can you protect your community? And I think that will really elevate the understanding. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a perfect ideal, right? And the direction to aim in with this. And for us, it's very interesting from a creative perspective, and it is a specific thing to comics because comics are periodical. You can make them very quickly. You're not responsible to giant entities. It's just like, this is how we're feeling, so this is what we put down. And to firsthand get to experience that response and have to ride this incredible wave of response to it and know, like, anyone who's in the comics game will tell you those shows can be very rough, right? And everyone's not always leaving with their shirt on. But if we're in there, and at LACC, we broke our personal record thanks to being alive and gave out 288 canisters of naloxone.
That's amazing.
Spray canisters. Yeah. 6 cases, and I had 2, which was our old record that I brought. Actually, I had 3 because I knew we were doing the panel. Tim showed up with 3 more cases.
I love
and left him. I was like, can we do this? And a big thing I did learn on that lesson if you want to quickly go back to that, of the different cities, was me trying to source naloxone there. And we can talk about that in a minute. But yeah, so at Los Angeles Comic-Con, we gave out 288, and it wasn't just casually like, hey, take this. What started to happen in Portland was, I was like, if we sit back and see who this connects with, people that know what it is, and they have that sense of validation and like, oh, thank you for putting this out there. And I'm grateful to everyone way before me, because this is, again, like a rewarding, fun thing to get to do. Far more grateful to people like yourself and the treatment center and the different harm reduction organizations than us that are like, hey, look, we drew Godzilla getting overdosed. So, sorry, I keep rambling.
But let me ask you this. Yeah. How many cases would you say you've given out over, in all these different cities?
So this is how this came about. Was we started out, we just had the story. That was it. At the library, I was like, oh, you guys give out naloxone? Could I have some? And took it to WonderCon, right? And gave out like 4 or 5, because that's what I had. And I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. And some lady's like, oh, you'll just give us this? I was like, yeah, why not? I got it at the library. Go check them out. Happened to be walking across, walking around my neighborhood and see the Being Alive storefront. They have a naloxone thing. I go in, and they were like rapturous about the comic. They were like, this is so cool. And that's what drives us, right? When the people that are like just feeling recognized, right? For the work that you guys are doing. So it was like, cool. And that immediately influenced our episode where we start sharing the taboos and value around the injectable version of naloxone. Because they were telling us stories, right? Okay. So then every time I finish an episode, I run it over there. And then they're like, you got to talk to our manager. And that's how I met Tim, who just started giving us cases. And I'm like, am I going to be able to give out a case? It turns out we could. Right? There's one show where it didn't happen. You were there, but we'll just focus on the positives.
Yeah, but you end up giving them out at the show that over the course of the 3 days, right?
Yeah.
Right, there you go.
But it's a little hard, right? It's weird because at those shows, people are very desensitized. They've been everything free they're offered. There's an angle. It's important for me to give it out in a way that's not like, hey, have this and you can buy a comic. And as I said, we sold like 12 comics at LA Comic-Con, gave out 288 canisters. So I feel pretty like clean and clear that that's obviously not how we're gaming it. And again, I have experience talking to people and you know what I mean? So it's not, and I'm very good at not promoting my own goods. So.
I got you. When you're giving them out, I'm curious. So when you're giving out the cases, how many people actually know about it? How many people ask you what it is? What percentage would you say? And I'm just talking like all the cities that you go through.
So most of the people that we give them to are people that it's easiest to give them to, are people that know what it is. And they're like, wait, really? Like I can have that? And it's like, yep, and that's it. There will be people that come up with a certain intent, and those are rewarding where you get to kind of explain what the whole thing is. And there's a lot of kind of walking away from the table with like the canister, like, okay, I guess I'll take it. Like that won't hurt. And it's like, right, it won't. Like this is the golden retriever. So different cities, the response is pretty equivalent, I would say, across all of them. Sourcing it is different. I didn't realize how spoiled I was with the being alive hookup. And they're paying for that too, right? Like the city is funding that. I've now met some of the politicians involved in it, and they're like, oh, so what do each one of these cost? So, but the money is spent on the thing. And I thought we weren't good at giving them out. Right? And then I got to go out to be part of the Safer WeHo Coalition, where we were just giving them out on the street. Right? And I made a free version of the comic, was like, hey, here you go. Like maybe this will get you. And it worked, right? It's like, you want to see a comic? And then they come over, it's like, here's Narcan or naloxone. And I realized how hard it was, right? Without being at the comic, without being a space you wouldn't expect it. It's just as hard at a comic show as it is outside bars, right? So it made me feel like, okay, so we are, whatever they saw in the potential of this, like it is, we're pretty on brand. But so sourcing it in different cities. Chicago was really interesting because we had a contact there, and then someone at the show was actually like, oh, I can get you some, right? They worked in harm reduction. They didn't succeed in it. Portland, I smuggled it there because I was very behind, didn't smuggle, but I brought like 98 from West Hollywood and gave them all out. And Denver, I got some, right? And family member of mine picked it up, right? Because they were local there, and calls me and is like, okay, so it's 325. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's so many. And it turned out they had given us, and I said very clearly, and the person who connected it was like, oh, Zine Fest? Like, we love that. I love Zine Fest. That's awesome. We'd be happy to give it out. The festival, I like to ask, was like, please, please, please distribute naloxone. It was 325 vials and 100 clean needles. Oh. So it was like, I don't think we're, we'll have it just in case you make that connection with someone who has that specific need and it's clear, but we're not putting needles on the table.
Well, that tells me that when you talk about the harm reduction community, how eager they are to partner and to get this, you get the tools out there, right? So, because when we deal a lot with, the law enforcement, we've, as a prevention at Tarzana, we've gone into at least 6 different police departments, and we taught, prevention to their cadets. We do a lot of work with parents, right, trying to educate them. Do you see in those communities an opportunity for Narcan to be a tool to help?
Yeah, I mean, and I can show you the example. My favorite, I feel like one of the strongest example we have from this thing is the way I think this project operates at its strongest. And I could go through any of these and they're great. And like the one that Elaine Page did is based on a friend of hers who's a funeral director. And the majority of deaths are because they signed, say, death by fentanyl overdose. So that became kind of the jumping off point that turns into the sidekick learning about the injectable version. But this one is called Rise of the Meta Beast.
Okay.
So you apply your own metaphor to what it means. And essentially the sidekick, as always, wishing he could do something else, anything besides this epidemic, and then here's stomping, crashing. All right, finally something new. And what is it? It's this gigantic kaiju. And this is because the artist, Ricardo Antonio, I was like, what would you like to do in this style? He's like, oh, I've always wanted to do a kaiju. And I was like, okay, whatever. It'll be a fun, like, attention-getting thing, right, to have this cover. But then it suddenly, at some point, it dawned on me, what a wonderful way to show how potent fentanyl really is. So in writing it, we have a character who decides, I'm going to stop this problem with opioids. Maybe you've heard of something like that before. I don't know. But then the question becomes, well, how much is it going to take to overdose a kaiju? So my favorite thing is when I get to see people reading this, every time they go, oh my God, it's only 5 grains of salt worth can kill a person, right? And so in this whole thing, there's that little piece that's just really shows how potent it is. And then the rest of it's, you know, the fun of you know, an overdosed kaiju and stuff.
He doesn't get revived, does he? We don't use the...
Oh no, well that's the other thing is this other wonderful artist, I hate to do spoilers, named Cherna Dasgupta, who I started everything with, drew a cover. And these are fellas that, you know,
I love that.
Now they have a Narc mobile.
Yeah, no, I love this. I love this, Tyler, because as I think about, you know, and I'm just seeing all the little faces, right, that we deal with in the schools. And sometimes just like the blank stares, like, okay, we've seen this before, right?
But sometimes they're taking it in, but they don't want to convey.
Look, I mean, they call it I think it's the Zoomer stare, right? It's kind of like that blank stare. Right. No, they are. But also I get a sense, and that's why I'm always, you know, encouraging the people that I work with to find creative ways to excite them, to get them interested, to get their interest, and to engage them. Right. Okay. And because if you don't, you're just going to be speaking a lot of words. And when they leave, they may, unless they have some sort of personal interest in it, unless they've lost someone. Right. And many people are starting to do that. But even still, they're still being desensitized to it. Yeah. But if you can have this, what do you call it, a kaiju? Right.
It's just that is the species that Godzilla belongs to.
Right. And so you have this big kaiju, this Godzilla-like creature on the screen, because we use screens a lot when we do our presentations. And we talk about how much fentanyl do you think it would take to stop this? Right. And then we can just segue right into, well, it takes this much. And then I know there's overdose prevention. They had that pencil and they showed just a little tip of it. Yeah. This is what it takes to stop a human being. Yeah. And then, so the conversation can really start now. That's why I love it. You know, this concept, man, of Narc, man. And I'm not just saying that, I really do, because I'm out there and I see how effective it could be.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate it. And I can't stress enough how much it is about the community and about the meaningful way people have responded to the thing that we did. You know, it's almost like we put the suit on, right? And then suddenly it's like, all right, now, and everything, as you've heard, like everything that comes up involving the epidemic gets sent to me. And it was so cool to sit with the artists too on that panel, because I think that's such a huge part of it is like the incredible people I get to partner with on this thing, you know, and everyone's coming at it with good intentions. But just the way that they were like learning about the epidemic, it's strange to me how, given how exploited it is for attention, let's say, how little is known about it, right? And people are just like, you know, you hear about these overdoses on drugs that aren't opioids, but it's the opioids that are in those drugs that are doing it. And it just seems like just awareness alone, you know, could be a very valuable tool. So
absolutely it is. And that's the thing I always say about just this subject matter and about organizations like Tarzana Treatment Centers that's out there doing the work. It's not as if these entities don't exist. It's just the awareness of it. Yes. The awareness and access to these organizations. Yeah. And that's why I'm really big at when I'm out at events, just making sure people know that we're here, Tarzana's here, you have Phoenix House, you have different organizations out there doing the work. Right? Because you're right, there's a lot of hoopla around this subject matter. Yeah. Right? People hear the word fentanyl a lot. Right? But when you get inundated with that sort of thing, it becomes like, oh, okay, I heard of that before.
Yeah.
But until you actually really know the dangers of it, when you actually really know the amount that it could really affect you, how it could affect you, how it could, tear asunder a family, then it's a different conversation.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so when you can package that
Right.
in a comic book, and I have, of course, my infinity is with youth, right? So I'm always
Right.
thinking about how can we reach this generation that is now just inundated with information? How can we break through that and then capture their attention? So you've got several, I'm not gonna call it episodes, but what's been
I
your...
call them episodes.
Okay, we call them episodes.
Yeah.
So what's been your favorite, and what do you think has been the most reaction, the biggest reaction?
Oh no, well, you're not gonna like the answer. But yeah, we have, I don't know, it's so interesting at every show what people react to and the way it's presented. Like I just like, it's really tough for me because everyone has a different artist just doing amazing stuff and their own interpretation of the character.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can't choose a favorite. I just think it's just fascinating to see the different ways people connect with them. Like I really, in terms of like maybe here's my favorite one, Mark.
Okay.
So this is when we went out and did the pop-up for Being Alive in the Safe WeHo Coalition. I just took a snippet from different episodes that everyone worked on that were the actual information, right? Where there was that information. So this is kind of like, this is our like distilled 5 grains of information that we hide in the episodes, where it is the actionable, actual stuff.
Well,
and
message.
Yeah, this one's pure, no fun here, just all, no, but it's, yeah, so I think that idea, and then like I have one that's entirely about people exploiting crises for financial gain. That I don't think, maybe that raises awareness. There's a certain community that's going to respond to that and that artist, right?
Sure.
And the different artists as well have different kind of followings and draws. So getting to kind of find those different communities, and then just the different ways every single person experiences grief differerly.
Absolutely.
And every single person's experiencing this epidemic. So like the young woman 2 days ago that I met, not at a comic booth, at their own somewhere, on Larchmont. There's a lot of booths there. So I'm not sharing anything too specific, but that person was like, their biggest thing was like, where do I put this grief? Just like, how do you, something that's that sudden and that immediate. So it's like.
Well, grief is a relatable subject matter.
Right.
It cuts across, race, gender, age. And so when you're writing a comic book like this, I would assume that you don't necessarily have to worry so much about, is this going to be relatable? Right, because it seems as if there is a relatability already sort of built in with the subject matter.
Well, and it's also not, it's not a TV show that has to have, 5 million viewers to stay on the air.
Sure.
It's like, I have a printer, you know what I mean?
Right,
like comics are a wonderful medium. And the other thing that was meaningful, that is going to be a very interesting episode, was someone came up, an accomplished comic creator, came up to our booth on Saturday, right? So I think you didn't meet them, but we met them Friday, and they had tears in their eyes and said, I have a friend who passed away from this, and I would love to pro bono do an episode. And it was like, okay, yeah, let's figure out what that is. But it's and it's always nice when the artists, that's the first thing I ask, like, what's your personal connection, or what do you want to draw? Sometimes you get a kaiju, right? And it ends up being invaluable, right? In a weird way. So, I guess the variety.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I'm being in this work. I think that people have to be willing to be open to new ways, and not necessarily new, because it's not as if entertainment hasn't been used to connect with people. Right. As I mentioned at the panel, I mean, from when we were young, Sesame Street, Electric Company, Zoom, Barney, and all of these, they were entertaining, but they sent out a message of learning and education. And so I think that, when it comes to comics, we, especially in this country, but really around the world, we've had this infinity, this relationship, since the first Superman back in the 30s, right?
Yeah.
We've had a relationship with comic books. And there's been episodes in comic books where the heroes have fought against villains, and some had, in whatever endeavor of crime that they've been in, with drugs or guns or whatever. So for me, it's when you put out Narcan, when you put that out into the atmosphere, it's exciting to me because it's sort of landing on a already established sort of precedence of people being open to receiving information through this medium.
Yeah.
And so what's next, man? Where do you hope to go with this, and what sort of relationships do you want to build with this? What's next for Narcan?
The fact it's a hero-based thing also plays with the fun idea of like there's real heroes every day on the street doing this. They don't have masks on, so someone who's actually kind of in their lane.
Were you pointing to me as a hero?
I was offering it. If you wish to,
I accept that.
If you wish to pick up the sword, it's offered. And so that's a fun thing about it too, is like that kind of playing with that concept of like who the real heroes are. And getting to do harm reduction and relief work and stuff. Next for Narcan is we. Currently, the current collection that I was showing of all of last year's work is available through my shop. So you can order one. My Instagram is TDS Cafe or TD Sequentials. So it's TDIOUS Cafe, where we brew up all kinds of comics and stuff. And you can find everything through that. And then at the end of this year, we're going to put together this new collection that has the ones we've been talking about as well. And really just kind of using this wonderful infrastructure of the comic industry to kind of use local comic shops and bookshops and stuff to get the work out there on the ground level, while also exploring options to get it to a much bigger audience that needs it very well. So I think there's so many stories written, so many that are being done, and we'll continue collecting these things every year. There's a big event with the death of Narcan that's approaching. Just always fun to have fun within the comic world. You can guess how.
Right.
Just keep it going, keep building it, and finding places where we can share this work and have people share their reactions and keep feeling it. And hopefully it becomes something that has nothing to do with the opioid epidemic at some point, because we get away from that and get past it and get the awareness out there, and Narcan becomes something else entirely. So evolution.
I love that. And I really, I love the work that you're doing. I think you guys are heroes.
No, we're definitely not.
Well, I would disagree, because when you go with the work that I do with youth, I see that tools like this are valuable. So I wish you guys a ton of luck. I'm excited to see where this goes next. I know we're going to continue doing collaboration. And
can't wait.
So thank you, Tyler, for sharing the space with us and telling us all about Narcan. And we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you for everything you do, and another wave of, of optimism and enthusiasm for this project. Now we can't stop.
We can't stop. We won't stop. It's an amazing project. We want to thank Tyler for joining us today here at Ayeneh, The Road to Recovery, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Brought to you by Tarzana Treatment Centers. You can visit our website at www.tarzanatc.org or call 1-800-996-1051.